What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Kent Clothier here along with Pat Precourt, Justin Colby. We are expecting Sean Terry to join us shortly. If he can make it. If not, it will not prevent us from just moving without him. As I said in my email and in my Facebook, I am hitting you guys up live from my vacation in Florida here. Justin is coming to us from his offices in Phoenix, and Pat Precourt is coming to us from his offices in Connecticut. So we're going to wait just a couple minutes here and let a few more people get on. I know we've got some people that have just sent me a message saying, hey, can you just stall for a couple minutes while I try to get on here. So what's happening, gentlemen? How you guys doing?
Doing well. Doing hot. How hot is it in Florida right now? Because it is smoking out here in Arizona.
How is it in Arizona? Tell me. What is it, 120?
It is. I'm looking at my phone. It's 113. If that's hot enough for you guys.
Man, that's the reason. That is the single biggest reason I don't live in Arizona, quite frankly. Everything else is cool, but I can't stand that.
And of course, Connecticut is the mid-80s and just awesome.
Well, it deserves to be awesome for at least 30 days out of the year because it sucks the other 335 days out of the year.
Haters, you know?
Oh, God. I mean, every squirrel's got to find the nut sometime, right? I mean, even a blind squirrel. So, guys, we are here, as I said, as everybody's coming on here. Sean's going to try to join us here shortly. We've got Justin, Pat, and myself. Again, I'm coming to you from my vacation here, but I thought, based on a series of emails that we've seen going out over the last few days from some other people, and a lot of questions coming up inside of our own organization, we thought it imperative that we do this webinar now. We do this training now versus waiting a week or two for me to come off vacation. We want to talk about it today. We want to get the information in your hands immediately. That way you understand exactly what is and is not factual in this current situation. So with all that being said, let me just tell you, if you're here, you should be here because you're here to learn quickly about what is legal and I guess not really legal or left up to interpretation as it relates to wholesaling on a state-by-state level and on a national level. We're going to talk about it in as much detail as we possibly can. I say all of this with a disclaimer that none of us are attorneys, and I don't want you to interpret anything that comes off of this video, this presentation, as legal advice. We are not doing that. Providing this as a service to our Real Estate Worldwide family to give you the best information that we can possibly provide you with and to make sure that you understand exactly what we're doing inside of our own business, right? And that you are armed with facts versus fear-based nonsense. It's that simple. So, Pat, I know you've got the presentation. I'm going to take myself off of the video here. I would suggest you guys do the same while you're doing your presentation. We can come back at the end, but that will help clean up some of the bandwidth here. That way, we're not getting any breaking up. So, Pat, I just turned my video off. Okay, yeah. You're ready to rock and roll, brother. So, without further ado, Pat Precourt, why don't we kind of jump into what we're going to be doing here today, dude?
Awesome, appreciate that. So here's an overview, guys, of what we're going to go through, and we're going to keep this short and sweet. And I don't even want to frame this as what's legal and what's not legal. I'd rather frame it in terms of, you know, how you continue to operate a proper, ethical, and honest business, so that nobody's being harmed along the way, and therefore nobody's coming after you for harming anyone. That's probably a fair way to describe it.
Yeah, that's a better way to describe it for sure.
Yeah, I just got to take the word legal out because that doesn't apply to us as non-attorneys, right? So this is what we're going to go over, and what I suggest, ladies and gentlemen, as we go along, go ahead and write down your questions, anything you have, and then we'll address them all as a block at the end. As not to just kind of disrupt the flow. This will be short and sweet and to the point for you. So we go through the keys to writing a proper valid contract, and that's a starting point in wholesaling, in that if you don't have a valid contract, you don't have anything to be marketing for sale. Second, we're understanding what actions are required, or what actions require a real estate license. There still seems to be a little misunderstanding of what actually license covers. So I just want to add a little clarity to that. An important dissemination between legal title and equitable title, and I certainly will not hold it against any of you for not understanding the definitive difference. I will put it upon many of the educators out there that don't understand the difference themselves and therefore misstate these two words almost as if they're interchangeable, which they clearly are not. Next, selling your contract versus selling real property. What does that mean? Fifth, intent, capacity, and deposits, and how that relates to taking care of our client and running an honest and ethical business that keeps you off the radar screen of your attorney general. Sixth, we're going to go over alternative closing strategies. Alternative is probably not the fair word. Kent and I were talking about this yesterday, just the different ways we close transactions in different scenarios, sometimes mandate an alternative closing process. So we're going to go through that and then just create then we're just going to go through quickly a summary of all of just some takeaways. And then, of course, like I said, we'll address any of the questions that you have at that time. Okay? So here we go. And again, if there's any questions, please just type them in the box and we'll knock them out at the end. And Justin and Justin and Ken, as we go along, anything you want to interject here, please feel free to do so. Keys to writing a proper, valid contract. Now, this isn't telling you exactly what has to be in the contract. This is the context, not the content of the contract, which gets overlooked often in doing this. So let me start by saying if you don't have a valid contract, all the rest of wholesaling falls flat on its face, okay? So we're in need of having a valid contract, all right? So that's why I'm going through this. Number one, must be in writing. And this is handled under the statute of frauds. In real estate, if it's not in writing, it can't be counted. And if there's something that you're expecting or anticipating to be part of a contract or not, and it's not in writing, it doesn't count. And this may go without saying, it may be that obvious, but there's still things that tend to get left out of contracts that need to be in there. And do know that if there's something of substance that is left out of a contract that is needed to make the contract executable, it in and of itself can invalidate a contract. Next two are very, very important as it applies to wholesaling. And just to be clear, I probably should have said this from the very beginning. Wholesaling, the discussion on the table right now, the very simple, the simple act of getting a house under contract, controlling it, and then selling the contract, right? That's assigning your rights within the contract. That's the transaction we're talking about. And like Kent mentioned, there's some information out there right now kind of scaring people into it being an illegal act in and of itself, which it is not, and that's why we're trying to add clarity to this. But these four things are required in a contract, and if these are not in the contract, your contract becomes invalid. With an invalid contract, then in fact you can't wholesale. You don't have anything to wholesale. Intent and capacity. Intent. What are your intentions going into this contract in writing? What are you intending on doing? What are you stating your intentions to be? And where this goes a little south is if your intention in a purchase and sale agreement is to buy the house, and along the way somebody offers you a fair amount of exchange of value for your contract and you assign that contract away, that's a totally legitimate legal, again, I take the word back, legal, a totally legitimate transaction. If, however, you use contracts to tie up properties with zero intention of purchasing as you are stating in the contract, then you're putting yourself in effectively a position of fraud because you're misstating your intent. You guys follow me on that? Let me say it one more time just so we're clear. The contract is a reflection of your intentions. In a purchase and sale agreement, it is clear that your intentions, which doesn't mean that you can't change along the way, you can, but your intention at the time of the writing of the contract is to purchase the property as per the stipulations you put in the contract for the price by a certain time with certain contingencies, etc. If you go into that contract and at the time of writing have no intention of actually purchasing it, yet you're stating in writing you intend to do so, you are misleading. You're intentionally misleading. And that would be considered a position of fraud, and in and of itself invalidates your contract. See, it seems like a fine line here, but this is one of those things that you've got to fully understand and put a little gravity behind. The next is capacity. If your intention is to purchase a property, do you have the capacity to do so? If you don't, and you cannot get the capacity by the time you need to execute your contract, as you stated in writing, if you know that that's not a possibility, then again, you're stating something in an intentionally misleading capacity, which invalidates the contract. Now that doesn't mean you need to have financing set up at the time of the contract. You need to believe at the time that you're writing the contract that you will have the means to execute what you state you're going to do. Am I clear on that? Capacity, you either have it or you don't, or you believe you have it or you don't, or you believe you'll have it by the time you need to close. Now, if you're going into a contract and you know darn well you don't have the capacity and you have no intentions of getting the necessary funds to close this deal, again, you're misrepresenting yourself, you're intentionally misleading, you're invalidating that contract by definition. And then the final piece here, remember, I'm not talking about the individual itemized items that are the content of a contract, date, two binding partner or two binding parties, exchange of value, all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the context, what wraps around your contract here. Next is equal understanding. A contract needs to have a meeting of the minds. Both parties believe the same thing is going to happen. You say, well, what does that mean? That means you can't put in funny language that is misleading, that's twisted, that can be construed or misunderstood, that two different intelligent parties could come up with two different correct conclusions. That would lead to a misunderstanding, not a coming together of the minds, and that also would invalidate a contract. The parties have to believe that the same thing is going to happen. Okay? Now, again, without getting into the individual pieces, I want you to just kind of embrace these four things and start, in my opinion, filtering contracts that you write through them. There's many different types of contracts. This doesn't just apply to real estate purchase and sale agreements. Okay? All right, next in line here.
So let's pause here for a second, Pat, real quick.
Sure.
Because I want to make sure everybody, we got a few hundred people on here, and a lot of people joined us after this. At the end of the day, everything we're talking about here is the spirit of the law. When you talk about intent, capacity, equal understanding, I mean, part of the reason why a lot of people can have these types of discussions is simply because there's a lot of this that's left up to interpretation, which is challenging in and of itself. One attorney general may say it one way, so another attorney general may say it another way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? I mean, so this can get very convoluted and very gray very fast for a lot of people. So I want to make sure that everybody that you understand what the outcome of this conversation is going to be. At the end of this, we are going to tell you exactly how to do deals, and to do the deals the way that you want to do them, the way they should be done, and be completely, what we feel like is compliant here. So again, I don't want you to think we're just telling you, oh, by the way, everything you've ever done, we're not blowing it all up and not giving you an outcome. We're going to give you a solution. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, and just to answer this one, there's a comment here saying that is not what legal capacity is. Again, I'm not using the word legal, okay? Now, and if you're an attorney or any of you guys out there, Understand what I'm saying, okay? When I'm saying the word capacity, I'm not, legal capacity has a definition to it, Mr. Tom, and I understand what that is, okay? Your capacity to enter into a legal agreement. That's not what I'm speaking of here. I'm speaking of your capacity to execute the terms that you are intending to execute, that you state you are intending to do, okay? So let's not get too far off on this stuff, okay?
Yeah, we
Like
don't want
Ken
to go
said,
down in the rabbit holes too far. We're going to give you a conclusion and help you solve the problem. So we're just trying to
yeah,
give you the foundational stuff here so we can have an intelligent conversation. Let's keep going, Pat.
yeah, and no doubt, a lot of you are a hell of a lot smarter than I am, and I'll grant you that, okay? But let's not make this more complicated than we need to do, and let's not try to outsmart each other. This is to keep us all out of hot water together, right?
Yep.
All right, understanding what actions require real estate license. I pulled this just from my own state. The language is all pretty simple. I highlighted what's most important that is replicated in most states, right? Engaging in the real estate business. I think that's pretty clear. It means acting for another for a fee. Acting for another for a fee, commission or other valuable consideration in the listing for sale or selling, exchanging, buying, or renting, offering, or attempting to negotiate a sale, exchange, purchase, or rent a property, an estate, or interest in real estate, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But what's important here is engaging in real estate business means acting for another, on behalf of another, for a fee, in representing either a buyer or seller in a transaction. We'll just sum that all up right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
you do, you need a real estate license. If you sell a house for someone else and collect a fee, you need a real estate license. If you have a buyer and you represent them in a real estate transaction for a fee, you need a real estate license. This is clear. This hasn't changed. This is black and white. Okay, so just leaving that as the baseline of what we're working with here, let's go on. Because this is where, if there's one thing, Kent, Justin, that I see nationwide that's picking up the most momentum, it hedges around this, and let's call it what it is. The resistance is being created most from the real estate agent space reporting investors operating as real estate agents without a license. Okay. Understood. We get that. Whether or not they should do that or not, that's not what we're here to discuss. Okay. There's always been an understanding in the real estate investment space on wholesaling that we had the right to sell a house because we had equitable title. And I'm here to undo that and add clarity to what we can and can't do. When do we get equitable title? We get equitable title when we execute a valid signed contract agreement to purchase, or at least an option to purchase, right? Equitable title is the right to obtain ownership, which is generated from the terms of a valid contract. It's not legal ownership, it's the right to obtain legal ownership. And that right is created in the contract that we just spoke of. Legal title, ownership, deeded owner record recorded on public record, full ownership or interest in a property, fee simple, which is the highest possible form of ownership in real estate, which is our ideal space to be at. The difference is this. When we go to sell a house and we're not a licensed realtor, the only house that we can sell are ones that we own with a legal title, not with equitable title.
So let's say it again.
The only house that we can sell without a license to sell real estate are houses that we own as principals, legal title, owner of record, public record. Okay, those are the ones we can sell, and therefore market. And this is where we're getting a little foul in the business. It was brought to our attention About a month ago, a gentleman in California had 3 or 4 wholesale deals, as many of us do, and he's running open houses on all of them. And he got reported to the, I think to the Attorney General. I forget now. Anyways, they investigated, and they said, "Yeah, you're in direct violation of what is required by a real estate license. Cease and desist." And the violation was that he was selling homes that he did not have legal title to. He was not the deeded owner to them, and he did not have a real estate license, broker or sales license, that allowed him to do so. And I was out on the web earlier today, just scanning and surfing different Facebook groups based around wholesale, and it's widespread, it's rampant. The amount of people selling homes they do not own, co-wholesaling homes they do not own. Oftentimes they don't even have an equitable right to. Not that made it any better or not. And because of that, in my opinion, we're going to see this spin up really fast, because now that attorney generals are taking notice, they don't have to look too far to find mass amounts of perpetrators that are playing in a space. And I'm not judging anyone at all, because it's how the industry's been taught, and I understand that, by some individuals who are teaching it who don't fully understand it themselves. And the purpose of this call is not to judge anyone. It's not to point fingers or blame anyone. It's to, let's just all get caught up to the changing times as fast as possible, so we're not the ones being hung out. Is that kind of fair, guys? Okay. So before we switch here, just one more time. Legal title, you are the deeded owner. I can go down, look on public record, and see that you own this property. Equitable title is simply that's the rights as beholden in our contract, the right which gives us the right to, at some point, obtain legal ownership. And those contracts would typically be a purchase and sale agreement or an option agreement, which gives us a similar right as well. Justin or Kent, do you have any further comment on that, or is that, you think, clear enough?
No, I mean, we can stop here, and if anybody's got a question, feel free to put it in here as it relates to this. Don't go off on some tangent. I mean, we've got some people that are already trying to take it down a rabbit hole here. We're going to get all of these ancillary questions asked, but what we've covered so far, legal title versus equitable title, is everybody clear? If not, you would need another explanation. Now would be the time. People who are creating big problems will have AGs in some sense, making no sense. Might have to be because of a layer. Like, okay, so yeah, we just got comments. I think we're all good.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move that. There. All right, so this goes into selling your contract versus selling real property. I kept this. Kent's like, when you put together these slides, use as few words as possible to make it as clear as possible, because that can be kind of wordy. You cannot sell what you do not own without proper licensing to do so. Period. You can sell the contract, but not the real property. You can sell chattel, non-real property. You can't sell what you do not own. You do own, by equitable rights, you own the contract is viewed as an asset. Therefore, you have the right to sell that asset. And I'm speaking in very broad terms. And I state that because there are some contracts out there that explicitly and specifically state in the contract that this contract is not assignable. Therefore, that contract cannot be sold. I don't care if you own it or you don't own it. You put it in writing that the intention is not to be sold at that point. Okay? So I say this in the general bird's eye view of contractual practice, that all contracts, generally speaking, are assignable unless they state otherwise, right? So we can generally sell the contract, but we can't sell the real property unless we own the real property. Now, this goes back to how we market our properties for sale, which technically you can no longer do, or you shouldn't have been doing anyways, but now I would stop doing it if you're doing it. If you have a contract, your asset that is sellable, there's no clauses in there stipulating otherwise, you market the contract for sale, not the property. The two ways we identify real property, one is by the postal address, and two is by the legal address. So you cannot use either of them to describe the asset you have for sale. You can describe the terms of your asset being the contract. You can state the value of your contract, how much you're asking for the contract, and so forth and so on. When somebody is interested in your asset, you can show them the asset for further evaluation. But you cannot market real property for sale that you do not own. And I know of zero exceptions to that. There may be common practice that allows that to happen. Maybe this might be a good time to bring up some hypocrisies in interpretation, Kent, if that's cool. And I'm not saying hypocrisies on our part, guys and gals. I'm talking about on the regulators. There are some MLS systems out there that actually allow you to put a property that you are contracted owner to on the MLS. There's a box you check. Owner by contract. I think New Jersey is one of those states. Now that seems to run in complete conflict to everything I'm saying. I completely understand that, okay? But I'm not changing my position on this, as it is true. Okay, just because local customs may currently interpret them differently, or things have just kind of fell through the cracks, doesn't change the laws here. Doesn't change what's required by licensing. I know in many states, and Justin, I think Arizona is still one of them, you can do a back-to-back closing. Well,
Yep.
it's very difficult to do a back-to-back closing when you first don't sell the property. And in order to sell a property, you have to market the property. In order to market the property, you are now marketing a property that you do not own because you haven't closed on it in the back-to-back transaction. Again, some crazy gray spaces are created. You guys are going to have to decide on your own how you want to work with this information. We see it almost on a daily basis now, though, popping up that there's building momentum against our traditional way of marketing a house for sale while we only have equitable ownership to the property.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to get to this. And by the way, Sean's on here now. Sean, are you there? Are you muted? Yo, Sean Terry. All right. Emily, if he's muted, if you can turn him on. I don't know if he's got his panelist code. Anyway, what I was going to say is that nothing's different. I mean, this has all been the same since the day we started in wholesaling. The only thing that's different is some, as is always the case, some people have gotten a little careless. Some people have gotten a little reckless with their advertising. They've gone too far, too extreme with it. They've rubbed some people's noses in it. They're doing things that quite frankly, the real estate board, the real estate commission, and their local realtors don't like because they're just simply saying, listen, why do I have to get a license if they don't have to get a license? So they're bringing in the big guns and saying, punish these people. And so are there more people looking at it? It's certainly coming under more scrutiny than it ever has before, 100%. But at the end of the day, is there anything out there that at least in my humble opinion, that hasn't been there before? No, it's just getting more attention because there's some people that are looking at it a lot closer because they're tired of getting their noses rubbed in it. People wholesaling hundreds and hundreds of deals, and they're going out and advertising them prior to owning them. They're marketing the property, not marketing the contract. They're doing things that feel out of line, and so people, their competition, are calling attention to it. As long as you're staying, operating in a pretty authentic, very transparent way, you're doing the right thing by your clients, you're doing the right thing by everybody involved, and this applies to 99% of the people that can hear our voice, you're going to be fine. It's the people that are just blatantly out there trying to put it to people over and over again, and as is always the case in any industry, they're twisting the knife on somebody. They're being hogs and not pigs, and they're bringing some scrutiny into the entire industry. And again, we see this in every industry. It's just our turn here for a little while.
Awesome. So let's talk on a couple. Two of these we already hit. I put them in as a slide. They will come up, and they do come up. If you ever had to sit in front of a judge and defend yourself, they'd say, well, what was your intent and what is your capacity to execute your intention? Again, separate it from the word legal capacity, which is something different. Your capacity to execute what you say your intentions are. Right? Now, intent is also not always validated by the words you state, but also or in addition to by your actions. So if you're sitting in front of a judge and they said, well, Justin, what was your intention? And you say, well, I was going to buy all those houses, sir. And they say, well, we've done some research and we saw you went to contract on 15 houses, and on 10 of those you wholesaled and 5 of them you walked away from. We'd argue that your intent was ever to buy those homes. And we have your track record to support it. That's one way intention is created, by your track record of performance. And of course, capacity would fall into the same thing. I stuck it here, deposit, for no other reason than it always comes up. And some could argue, well, putting $1 down invalidates a contract. Some would argue that it doesn't technically. And listen, at the end of the day, no one thing here is going to make or break any of this, like whether or not you get in trouble. It's your track record across the board. Now, if you're the guy putting down $1 on a contract, and out of 15 contracts you buy none, wholesale 10 and walk away from 5, it's just adding to what your intentions were. What is the recommended? What is my, Ken's, Justin's, Sean's recommended deposit if you're gonna play in this game? Somewhere between that $500 and $1,000. Is that written in stone? Will that guarantee solve everything, or could you put down less? Listen, there's nowhere written anywhere that there's a minimum required deposit above the requirement of having a deposit. I'm just telling you from general practice, if you're looking for a fair number, that number is used all the time in standard real estate transactions. Would you not agree? $500 to $1,000. So it's a safe, comfortable number, and that's why I brought it up there. I would stay away from the $1 to $10 and $100 personally. And you guys got to choose how to operate, right? I'm just giving you advice from a position of wisdom there.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Alternative closing strategies, okay? Let's just talk through these, then I'll just open it up to you guys if you want to add anything. Obviously, the number one would be to buy the property, to rehab it or to clean it up and resell it, or second, buy it and resell it immediately. The caution, I put those little asterisks up there only because of what I brought up. There becomes a potential conflict in selling a home you do not own. Now, is it a little more amicable, in my opinion, doing in a back-to-back closing? Yes, because you had clear intentions on what you were going to do in your contract, and you executed your intentions. And I could sit in front of a judge, say, Judge, yes, I pre-sold it, yes, I get all that, but I bought the house like I said I was going to. And I did not sell it for someone else. I sold the house that I was going to buy, and I bought it, and I sold it to them. And that's a little different than marketing a house, in my opinion, right? These have now, we don't have case history to support these. They're not, we're just not that far along the legal system. In my opinion, that's a little more defendable than selling a house that you do not own on contract. Okay, so I do put an asterisk there. And then finally, one of our preferred methods for closing a transaction, and Ken's come up with a pretty brilliant version of this option agreement that works very well in the wholesaling space, in lieu of an option agreement, in an option agreement in lieu of a purchase and sale agreement. Here's why we kind of favor this. Number one is its intention is clear. I'm buying a set of rights. I'm not giving you a deposit. I'm giving you an option fee. An option fee means that the seller can take that money and stick it in their pocket, which is totally cool. In exchange for that, they're giving us a set of rights. The right is simple. We have the right to buy this house or not, make a decision or not. go forward with it or walk away from it. We're buying a set of rights, and our intention is to make up a decision sometime between now and the termination of our option agreement. It's crystal clear what our intent is. The intent is that we have an option, clearly stated in the agreement. Okay? I'm sure there's some questions, Ken, about the assignability of an option versus the assignability of a purchase and sale agreement, and the assignability is exactly the same. Contract is a contract is a contract. Unless it states otherwise, the contract is assumed to be assignable. Now, would it make, in my humble opinion, would it make the contract better if you state in the contract, we reserve the right to assign this contract? Absolutely. Sure, put it in there. Is it wholly required? No. Does it add more clarity? Yes. So feel free to put that in there. If it states contract is not assignable, it does just the opposite. Makes it an unassignable contract. Anything else you want to say, Ken or Sean or Justin, on closing alternative strategies to straight up wholesaling transaction?
Hold on, I'm going to share my screen real quick while, go ahead, Justin and Sean, but I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to bring this contract up.
Yeah, I was just going to actually mention, Ken, in our actual option contract, the last 2 points that you hit on, Pat, are actually in our option contract, right? So it very clearly states that we have the ability to assign, okay? And it's very clear in here, as Ken's going to show it to you guys, but we have the ability to assign it.
Can you see this contract?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so everybody, when you registered for this webinar, you were immediately redirected to go download this contract. We will also send it out as another link for those of you that did not do it. But this is the option contract we are encouraging you to use. And basically, walk through, and is very, very transparent with the person you're buying the property from. Keep going, Justin. What were you saying?
Just the provisions here under 6, that first provision very clearly says that we have the right to purchase the property and or assign the property, right, for an option fee, saying that we are going to be paid to assign this property. So it is very clear to the seller that we as investors will be paid on this transaction. So you're covering both bases with just that one clear sentence. I actually really also like, I think, Kent, it's one down at the end of provisions. We have a comment in there about how if we are going to execute this option, that we will move it over into a purchase agreement.
Number 3.
Yeah, third one down. So to your point, Pat, you brought up the point that could we assign the option agreement? Absolutely. However, my office here in Phoenix, we move it over into a purchase agreement and then continue the process of closing escrows, right? So those are 2 key components that we wanted to make sure that we're in this above, and beyond everything else. But to those 2 points, very important to be in there.
And
let's just be clear here, guys. One second here, Pat, and I'll come back to you. At the end of the day, we live in a very litigious society. It is what it is, what it is. If somebody wants to come after you and claim that they didn't know and that they have a problem, the fact that you bought their house and you turned around and you sold it and made money on it and all those kind of things, at the end of the day, we live in a world where people can do whatever they want and the attorneys will line up to go and get their names in the paper and collect those fees and make this happen. It's just the world we live in. What this contract is intended to do, ladies and gentlemen, what this entire presentation is intended to do, is to, at a minimum, act as a deterrent. This is a very clear and transparent contract. It is clearly stating that you are buying the option to do something with this property. You are paying money for the right to work with this property, to go and either close on it, buy it for yourself, buy it as a rental property, go and fix and flip it, or if you want, just go flip it to somebody else, and everybody is signing off on it. If you put this in front of an attorney that is potentially trying to figure out, is this somebody that, do I want to go after Justin Colby and this is the contract that they're reviewing, this would be very challenging for them to say that everybody didn't know what was going on. Now, is it 100% that it's going to prevent? No, but nothing is. What we're trying to do is arm you with the best information. We know how to arm you. We're not trying to scare you. We're not trying to deter you. We're just trying to make sure that you understand the value of information, the value of our industry, and there are people out there that their intention is to scare you in order to sell a product. Just trying to give you really good information so that you can go out there and go and operate within these guidelines as best and as clearly as we know how to tell you today. Pat, anything, or Sean, both of you. Sean, I think say something, Sean, make sure I can hear you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Perfect, yeah, so we got Sean here now. So Pat, I'll go to you, and then Sean, I'll come back to you. But Pat, is there anything you want to add to that comment?
All I was going to add is that, yeah, this is a sweet contract, and still, ladies and gentlemen, please run it by whoever your local counsel is, right? Because here's the thing, you get 10 attorneys looking at the same contract, they're going to have 10 different opinions, and I quite honestly don't want to hear one of you guys coming back saying, but my attorney said, well, you know what? A lot of it's opinion, and I get it, but if that's who you're going to rely on, and that's who you're using for guidance, then use their opinion. I'm okay with them being right and me being wrong, but please run it by whoever your trusted advisor is, okay?
Sean, what about you, brother? Any advice you would give here?
I think when we did the research on this, and yes, I did talk to my attorney because I do obviously trust him and for advice, and obviously he'd be the one to essentially defend me in if there was any such claims. But the information that I got is, an option agreement like this, to use to be able to control the property, which is sufficient. And then the issue, and then it was funny because I had him come out and speak to my meetup group. We had about 100 people here. And he was talking about this particular situation and the concern of it in Phoenix and concern of it in other ways across the country. So and obviously attorneys scare people. Do you know what I mean? They give you the where they try to steer you down where there's absolutely zero liability. But in business there is a risk reward type of deal. There is an element of risk in anything we do. Just like Ken said, there you can have sellers that potentially could sue you for whatever reason, and and that is a possibility. The question is, do we get afraid from it, and do we run and abandon our business just because of fear? And the thing is any business you're in, whether the business be whether you're wholesaling products like Ken has come from, whether you're selling coaching and part of the big groups, or if you're doing whatever. Like I'm looking across the street and they got girls that cut hair. Well, the owner in that place has liability insurance if someone trips and falls, or if they get stabbed in the neck by someone with some scissors. So there's liability in everything we do. The question becomes, how can we mitigate the risk and limit that liability as much as possible? So I think these guys have done a phenomenal job when it comes to the different options when it becomes to limit that liability. One of the liabilities is of the intent of what you do, and when it comes to closing, the biggest I guess idea of intent would be using double escrow or assignments in that particular case, whereas transactional funding eliminates that completely and it wipes that liability out, right? So in that particular. The other thing that was stated is, what we've done in our business to mitigate or limit this risk is to hire a disposition manager, someone selling our properties that is a licensed realtor. So we have a licensed realtor now that is representing the selling of the property, and they get a percentage and a commission. That could be done very easily. There's tons of real estate agents out there that would love to have the fact to be able to market and sell properties to a specific buyers group. So, so with all these said, I always try to look for the solution of what can what can we do, because we're not going to stop doing business. Kent's not going to stop doing business. I'm not going to stop doing business. So what is the solution? So absolutely, if you close and you rehab and you sell, you don't have any liability whatsoever. If you close, immediately resell with transactional funding, you limit the liability significantly. And then with the option agreement, you turn around and sell. Then it is clearly stated in that agreement exactly what the expectation is from the buy side and the sell side. The only thing would be to limit that would be have a real estate agent list and sell, and then if you're under contract on a property and you have a real estate agent that's going to not essentially list but essentially sell the property, then the board of realtors will have a non-issue. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you're dead on. We're all saying exactly the same thing. At the end of the day, guys, I think Sean said it perfectly. I mean, you don't go out of business, and this is a normal function of doing business. You figure out what the issues are. You figure out what all the remedies to the situation are. And is anything or everything perfect? Of course not. I mean, a motivated person that wants to come after you for any particular reason, they're going to do that. And there's nothing you're going to do to ever make your business 100% risk-free. But you don't live in fear of that. You operate in the real world. And what you do is again, these 4 solutions. There's 3 on the page, and Sean mentioned a 4th one, and that is, at the end of the day, go get your real estate license. And disclose that you're a realtor, and or hire somebody on your team that has the real estate license. I can tell you in Memphis, all the people that sell our properties now, or Memphis Invest, I should say, all the people that sell all our properties are now licensed, and not for any particular reason, except that we just wanted to hedge our bet. We just didn't want to operate anymore in the gray area because we're doing 650 deals a year, right? I mean, if anybody's on the radar, it's us. And so, if you're a one-man show and you're out there doing 10 deals a year, and you're not skirting outside of the law, and you're taking care of your clients, and you're using this option contract, and you're really doing the right thing, you have nothing to worry about. I mean, you got a better chance of winning the lottery. But if you're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deals, and you're just a prick about it, and you're taking advantage of people, and you're just not doing the right thing, and you know who I'm talking about, yeah, you're probably going to have your day in court, and it's probably not going to be really a good day for you. And so we're just trying to tell you what you should be fearful of, what you shouldn't be fearful of, and in the end, give you the best information that we know how to give to you. And Pat, I think you did a great job here, dude.
Yeah, and I just want to say one. I just want to say one last thing is that and Ken, you're absolutely right. I think there's going to be 2 types of people that is going to, as this information becomes more predominant in the marketplace, there's going to be 2 types of people that take this information and then react to it. There's going to be one type of person that's going to take the information, they're going to freak out, they're going to overreact, they're going to go, oh my gosh, there's no way, and then they're going to go back and crawl to their job. And then have that risk there, potentially, being mediocre, living in mediocrity for the rest of your life, and retiring with a gold watch, and then working at Walmart, pushing in carts when you're done. So that's one thing. Or you can look at it and say, this is incredible opportunity. What it's going to do, it's going to weed out the weak, and it's going to empower the strong that are going to now take this information, realize that it's going to thin out the competition. And now, focus on doing the right thing. And if you're doing the right thing, you got to look in the mirror every single day. If you sit down with a grandmother and you can, pull $100,000 check, out of that grandmother, that's her life savings, and because your negotiation skills and understanding people and how to do that, it's in those situations where you got to say, okay, listen, I got to do the right ethical thing, and instead of making $100,000 check, you make a $5,000 or $7,000 or $10,000 check, but you help her get out of the situation and do the right thing. Then those choices, you have to make, and it's doing the right thing. So we have walked away from a ton, not really walked away, but have minimized our revenue, in those type of situations because of who the person is and their situation and stuff like that. So you've got it. It is a balance in this business because the education that's out there right now that both Ken teaches, both I teach, and Justin and Pat teach about negotiation and stuff. It's you have the ability to take advantage of people, and you got to do the right thing. So choose to be the person that's going to take the information in, modify your business, and then be able to capitalize on this real estate boom that we're in right now. And do the right thing, and then don't be the person that's going to crawl into a corner in fear, and then work at Walmart pushing in carts when you're 65.
And that's all a great point. Sean, historically, whenever clarity is brought to subjective or gray spaces in law or interpretation, the business owners have always benefited, and the only ones who won't are the ones who see it somehow as a negative thing. Right. Let me address just one comment here real quick, just to show show how wacky some of this stuff is. This guy said I was putting properties under contract directly with an asset management company and was told by a judge in the California DRE that as long as you are not utilizing the MLS, you can sell any property because it's not regulated by the DRE, Department of Real Estate. That is so wrong and so not even in alignment with any logical thinking that either that advice was completely misinterpreted, or you're dealing with a judge that has nothing to do with real estate. The MLS is not a governing body in or around real estate licensing. It's just another piece to it, right? There's licensing laws in every state that tell you exactly what needs to be done. We went over that earlier in the presentation. Whether or not a property is on or off the MLS has nothing to do with the real estate laws and what's bound within there. I just had to add a little clarity to that, and I guess point out the idea that just because somebody has a title doesn't mean they're an end-all in the discussion. So let's kind of wrap this up here. What about a real estate license? And I just want to bring this up really quick because it seems to get thrown out a lot of times, that a real estate license fixes everything. In some cases, in Sean's, your case, it works perfectly, right? In other cases, it may not do everything you need it to do. It doesn't automatically fix it. There's an understanding, an underlying fiduciary responsibility that goes along with having a real estate license. And for those of you who are not clear on that, it's simply a legal duty to act solely in the benefit of another, right? And in this case, a realtor has a fiduciary responsibility to their client as a buyer or a seller, right? And where this gets challenging is if the real estate agent is representing a seller yet wholesaling the deal. I don't want to go too much further into this because this could just be a rabbit hole, but just be aware and understand the clearest way to put this is you're either the investor, you the individual operating as the investor, or you're operating as a realtor. You're collecting a wholesaling fee, you're collecting a commission. So just understand where you operate there. And deceptive marketing comes in, and I bring this up because it's happening everywhere when a realtor is marketing and then a client engages them as a realtor. The realtor tries to flip them over to the wholesaling side of the business. Just don't do it, and I'll kind of let it go at that. Dig in deeper as to the responsibilities of your license if that's a question. So, in summary,
Did you seriously spell the word summary with an E? After
No.
all this intelligence you've been spouting off here, now you spelled summary with an E.
no.
I'm just
That's
giving
the
you a hard
assumption that you think you built the slide. That's the assumption you're making here.
Yeah, and I'm denying.
No.
I'm absolutely
Yeah,
denying.
deny. Go ahead, brother.
Treat people right. There's the golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated. The platinum rule says treat them the way they want to be treated. Just treat people right. It protects you in like 99.5% of all situations. Generate lawful contracts. If your contracts are not binding and done proper, there's nothing else in this game left for you. Okay, everything's off the table at that point. Do what you say and say what you do. Make your intentions clear and follow through on them. Don't try to deceive people like Sean just said. Be straight with people. They'll appreciate and respect you. Even if they don't do business with you, they'll respect you for being straight up with them. Don't sell if you don't legally own it. We went through the definition of legally own it versus having an equitable interest. Know your state laws and local customs. Everything we said here is great, but you got to bring it down to earth in your backyard. There's laws and then there's customs, and the two don't always line up perfectly, as the customs become an interpretation of the law and what your local law enforcement allows to happen or not to happen. And then finally, I think Ken opened up the show from this position. Operate from a base of facts, not from a place of fear. Fear is an emotion, and our emotions lie to us. Emotions run in an inverse relationship to intelligence. As your emotion goes up, your intelligence goes down. Put your fear aside by arming yourself with facts. That's why we brought these things to you today. That's why we're here to share with you the truth about it, so you can be an intelligent business owner, so you can adapt to the changing environment. And we say this all the time, it's not your resources on hand, it's your resourcefulness that will allow you to thrive in changing environments. That's all I got, guys.
All right, so let's we'll go from about we'll go for a few more minutes here and see if we've got any questions here. If you got a question, go ahead and type it in the chat over there. So we can use the new option agreement for the seller and the end buyer. Basically, when you get the property under contract with that option, you have the right to assign that option to somebody else if they decide to execute on the actual purchase or sell agreement. That's effectively what we're telling you there. Pat, any clarifying statement that you want to make to what I just said?
Nope, perfect, good.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm just reading these comments.
Yes,
if you have it under contract.
Yes, it applies to commercial real estate as it does residential real estate. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. You understand you can use the property address if you're using the option contract, because you're clearly stating in the option contract that you're going to go potentially sell your interest in the contract. So I mean, you have equitable interest in that at that point. You have the ability to flip that contract, and you're not going to create a problem with your seller if you clearly state there that this is my intent. I may go flip this. Let me just see. God, man, these questions are coming in fast. If you use the option, okay, from Josh. If you use the option, then you have to get a purchase and sell agreement signed if you're going to exercise the option, or is the option enough? You don't have to go get a purchase and sell. You can assign your option contract to your end buyer, and they can execute on the option at the purchase price. But ours clearly states that if we want to, we reserve the right to put a purchase and sell agreement in place. To just be even more clear. I put the contract in here. I'll do it again.
Can I market myself as an investor agent? Of course, you can market yourself any way you want, but what that implies to the consumer, to me, is that you're an agent that likes working with investors. Remember, DR, you're either in any engagement like that one transaction, you're either the investor or you're the agent. Don't cross those lines. As the investor, you're looking out for your financial best interest. As an agent, you're looking out for their financial best interest. Do not blur that line.
Yeah, you can be a principal in the transaction and be the investor, or you can be the realtor. It's very difficult to be both. But that option contract, again, kind of gives you the rights to sell the property, so there's no need to be the realtor in that transaction. But you do have to disclose that you're a realtor regardless of the transaction. Yes, this is being recorded. I'll send it all to you. What's your prediction on the real estate market right now? This isn't the time, Benjamin. We're kind of going through this. Did you say you were going to email the contract? Yeah, I'll email it to everybody, but hopefully you should have seen a link in here to click on it, but I'll email it as well. Would in-house agent be a subcontractor list the property itself? Okay.
Asim asked a good question. Why not put the option provisions in a purchase and sale agreement? I've seen that contract rolled together, as an option to buy, and you see combination lease with option to buy, because there are two different intentions. In a purchase and sale agreement, you intend to buy, and you put a deposit subject to contingencies being met. In an option agreement, you're not intending to buy. Your intention is to reserve the right to make a later decision, and you don't put down a deposit. You put down an option fee in exchange for those rights. So they're two definitive different contracts. Therefore, I would never recommend blending the two together. It just adds confusion to intention.
Where can I go read the conversation, the details? Okay, we will. Like I said, we'll send out a recording of this.
Why would a client feel any different whether a real estate agent collects a commission or a wholesaler collects a fee? Gray, we're not talking about how the client feels. I assume you're going to make them feel good in any scenario there. I'm talking about doing what's above water so your butt doesn't get in trouble, bro. Those are two totally different transactions, and I'm trying to define the difference between the two. Okay? I'm assuming you're going to take care of your client no matter what.
Well, just for understanding is, when someone is a realtor, if they have a realtor hat on, they are representing someone in the purchase and sale of a property. Now, when you represent someone, that is a very that is something that you have a fiduciary responsibility to, obviously get the highest price and the best terms, but you now represent and you're essentially working for that client in a way to sell the house and give them advice. If you have a hat on as an investor and now you are acting on your own behalf, now you're contracting the property to purchase it on your own behalf, and you are not representing the seller, you're not representing the buyer, you're not representing anybody but essentially yourself.
Correct. Good call out.
All right, anything else on this, guys, before we jump off here? If you have any other questions, Pat, if you want, you can go on. What I would suggest is that, Pat, maybe we'll go through and look through these comments and questions, and if there's any other questions that we don't feel like we got addressed here correctly or answered correctly, when we post this replay link, we will post this in that private Facebook group. I'll also send it to Sean. I'll also send it to Pat so they can post it on their Facebook group, their pages as well. And we will put in the comments, any answers that we don't have time to address here. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Pat, you guys all good with that? And then same thing with you, Justin. Just go ahead and put it out there. That way anybody can. And if you have any comments or questions there, guys, again, just ask them there, and tag us, and we're monitoring that pretty quickly in real time. But I'm on vacation,
where again do you want them to ask the questions? Because there's a ton of great questions here. So where would you rather them ask them?
Well, I'm just saying, if there's any questions here that you're not going to answer now, or that you feel like you've already answered, and then when you're reading through all these, you want to answer at a later date. When you post this video to your Facebook page, because you're about to get this whole video. We had Emily record this. Take that video and put the answers in the comments there, right? So people can look through all the comments and answer any questions that they've got, or they can send their comments or questions to support@reww.com, and we'll be happy to answer them there. Or equally, Pat, if there's something, is there anything else here before we let them go that you want to sit there and answer? Is there anything you feel like we didn't get covered?
Just a lot of great questions, but we're either going to end it now or answer 50 more questions, so we're good.
Guys, Sean, I'm sure you can look at the questions. Is there anything that you want to make sure that you leave here with? Any of the questions that you're seeing pop up that you don't feel like we covered in the entirety? Because there's a lot of people that came on late, so when they get the replay, they're going to get their question answered through watching the replay. I'm looking at Ed's question that was answered in the first 10 minutes.
Are you at risk if you never buy a property and you wholesale every deal?
Well, you're certainly establishing a track record of wholesaling, so if you ever tried to deny that your intention was to wholesale, you would be incongruent. That would make you at risk. So if you ever tried to step in front of somebody and say that, hey, I really was going to close on this, but you've literally never closed on anything, then we all know that that's false. So you would be at risk. Unless
using your contract, your option agreement. So it states clearly what you intention
Yeah, I
is
mean,
there,
yeah,
and you would be in flow with your intention.
correct. That
One,
unless it
one
was
thing that wasn't talked about is the option really is about your intention, and a purchase agreement is about a commitment, right? Your purchase agreement, you're committing to purchase, where your option agreement has your intention is clearly stated. I will buy and or I will assign. I have the option to do both. I would leave everyone with 4 basic bullet points that they need to be that they need to take away from this conversation, right? One is going to be your intention. That can be covered directly with the option contract. Pat, I think you also had capacity on here, which Sean mentioned, the capacity to fund the deal. So you want to look into, and Sean actually has a great transactional funding company himself, but look into transactional funding so you actually do have the capacity to fund the deal. The third would be having your disposition manager be licensed. Myself in our office here, David is licensed. I know Sean just mentioned he has his disposition manager licensed. I would look into that also. And I think I'm combining the option contract with capacity or intent. So really those 3. The intent, which is the option contract, the capacity, which would be transactional funding, and the third above and beyond will be getting yourself licensed or getting your disposition manager licensed. Really, again, to Kent's point and Pat's point and Sean's extreme point of mitigate as much risk as you possibly can by those 3 avenues, and you should be good, right? So those would be the 3 that I would want everyone here to take away from: intent, capacity.
We had one thing that was good, Justin, and everybody's going to keep adding one thing here, right? There was a question earlier about, well, what if we put our intentions in the contract saying that we have the right to market and sell this property? Does that make it okay? And the answer is this falls under contracts. 2 parties cannot agree in writing to circumvent the legalities of a contract. You can't put something in a contract that is an illegal happening. So just because the seller says they give me the right to market the property that I don't own doesn't make it okay. Even though we meet the intention aspect of the contract, I'm about to perform something that is prohibited under licensing law, real estate licensing law, which now invalidates the entire contract in whole. So it actually snowballs in the wrong direction. So the answer is no, you cannot put things in a contract, even if they agree to it, if it conflicts with your local area law. Just to kind of be clear on that. All right, we should probably wrap this up, Ken, or this will go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate your time. Appreciate you showing up. I know we kind of had to do this at an odd hour because, as I said, I am on vacation. And again, your actions out of this, we will turn around. We will send everybody on here a replay link. We will also send everybody here the link to go download the option contract. And we will also load the video and those links into the Facebook groups that all of you no doubt belong to. So you should be able to get all this and access this and watch it on your own dime and get all your questions answered, without any problems. But if for any reason you have any problems, feel free to contact my office at support@reww.com. And what is support at, Sean, with you?
Support, you can send it to actually just send it to flip2freedom2@gmail.com, flip2freedom2@gmail.com.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody doing this, man. As always, appreciate you guys.
All right, cheers, guys.
All right, thanks.
Hey, guys. Bye.
Yes.